Hey everyone, I just wanted to apologize for the length of this video. It went a little longer than I expected, I got carried away, didn't have the greatest outline for what I was actually going to talk about, so I didn't wrap it up too well. So I'm going to apologize beforehand about that, and also say that I'm going to post a bunch of links to other tutorials that probably do better than I do, and also go more in depth into the topics I'm talking about in the description. Now for the next video, I really don't know what I'm going to talk about, and I want to make this a series, so it'd be great if you guys in the comments could actually tell me what you'd want to see in a tutorial video, and I will do my best to get everyone's ideas in. Obviously, I can't do things like teach you completely animate because, as I say in this video, it's mainly practice. But it would be great to hear your feedback on how long you want the next video and what you want to see in it, so it'd be great if you guys could let me know. Hello everyone, I have been receiving a lot of feedback requesting animation tutorials, and so I decided to do that. I was originally going to do one huge video with a whole bunch of tips and tricks, but I procrastinated and I've learned more stuff, and I decided it'd be better as a series. So this will be the first one, and if this one does well and people like it, I will make more. So to start it off, I'll be doing some just basic animation techniques and whatnot, and how to get started in Source Filmmaker. But before you watch this, I would suggest you do watch the official Valve tutorials, as you know, they know more about what they're doing with their own tool than I do. So I'd watch those first if I were you. So I'll start off with just some basic stuff. I'd assume you all know how to move the camera around by now, if you watch the Valve tutorials. So I will talk about how to use the camera a little better, depth of field and whatnot. Some important camera techniques. And then I'll move into animation of actual characters. So we'll load up the Scout, since he's my personal favorite. Probably the most fun to animate with. Not sure why, though. I just enjoy. Probably because I just do better making facial expressions with the Scout. Sniper's pretty good too, though, as all of you have seen. So, here we have the Scout. I have my camera. And one thing you're going to want to learn is the rule of thirds, which basically means that if I have the camera pointed directly at my character, it doesn't look as good as if I had the character on one of the thirds of the screen. So, like for Scout, I'd probably put him right there. Not directly centered. It looks a little more better and professional than the having him directly in the center of the screen. So that's pretty important for scenes, and there's a lot more tutorials that go really in-depth into that, so I'll link some of those in the description. Now, let's... okay, in case you don't know what I'm doing there, I am taking the camera and making it an animation set so I can edit the properties of the camera by going here and create animation set from existing element, and then grabbing the camera. This allows me to do a bunch of stuff with the camera, like changing the tone map scale. I like to make that a little bit lower so lights have more effect, and the aperture, which is what we want to work with here. So I'm going to put the aperture about halfway up, so you can, actually I'll put it all the way up so you can see the effect of depth of field. And the focal distance, when I change that, it gives me a plane. So if I focus the plane on the Scout, that means the camera will be focused on him. So now if I switch to this view, not much has changed, because all there is a white background. But what it's doing is it's blurring out everything but what it's focused on, so that'd be the Scout. So if I put I don't know, another Scout in the background, there's been a whole bunch of Scouts, so let's use Scouts this entire video. Move this Scout back here, and I go back to this, you'll see that he is all blurred out, and this Scout is very clear. This is great for setting the focus of your video. So if you want one character to be talking and this guy is in the background, everyone's going to be looking at this guy and not this guy. So you know who your viewers are looking at. So that's just an important technique. Camera working technique. So other than that, messing around with the camera, you don't really want to do much else. Just changing the focal distance and the aperture. So focal distance chooses what you're focused on. So if I want to be focused near the Scout, I'm going to actually need to extend the range a little bit, because he's pretty far away. And then I focus it on him, and then the aperture changes how much it blurs. So if I have it down to 0, they're both very crisp. Put up to half, he's pretty blurred, and this guy's nice and crisp. I prefer to have it right before the A. That's what I do in most of my videos. So it's not super blurry, but it still adds that focus effect. Next thing you want to do is something I do a lot now, is adding a vignette effect. Now they showed this in the Valve tutorial, but I didn't get it the first time around, so I'm going to explain it, and hopefully so that you guys can get it now. what you do is go down to the overlay section down here in effects, and you add a material overlay effect. Now that adds something you can change just so it works like a sound or a animation clip. You can grab that, zoom in. Grab that and drag it out along your entire animation. So for this, you're probably going to want to have the entire animation this, and then you're going to show it in the element viewer. Now this is a, I have been told can break your animation if you don't do the right stuff with it, but I haven't actually managed to break anything yet. But this is a very powerful part of Source Filmmaker, and you can do a lot of interesting things here. So to be neat, we'll just call this Vignette, and then we'll go into the TF Movies folder and search for Vig, because I'm not quite sure if I spelled Vignette correctly. So this will add in that kind of darkened corners effect to your video, which is another focus technique. So it will make sure that no one's looking at the corners and keep the focus of your video in the center, not the entire center. So I like to have mine not quite completely that dark, just for enough for an effect. You get the basic idea of where you want to be looking. That's just my personal opinion. As with all these things, I am not an expert on this. Apparently people like my videos, so I decided I would say what I personally do to make them the way they are. So now some actual animation. Let's try that out, see how that works. So for animating, I'm going to sound like everyone else, but really animation is not something I can really teach you. I can just give you some tips and tricks on it. It's just something you have to practice a lot. But I can help you with some tips and tricks I've learned to make it a little bit easier in Source Filmmaker, and some issues I've had that I've learned how to fix. So first thing is, Scout's dog tags are a pain to animate, and I usually just remove them. I take them and I drag them off someplace else and leave them there, because I hate animating them, because they move with his neck and it's annoying, and yeah, mainly laziness, but makes it a lot easier to make a video look good. Because if you have the dog tags floating in midair, it doesn't look good. So that's the first thing I'd suggest if you're using Scout. I'm not sure any other characters have that issue with anything. Might want to take off hats if you really don't want to animate those either, but they're not really that tough to animate. So first thing that I suggest is, if you notice right now I'm using the motion editor, which is, I think, what Valve mainly teaches you how to use in their tutorial. I haven't actually watched the new ones on pose-to-pose animation, but I've heard they're good. So I used to use the motion editor exclusively, and I didn't even touch this thing because it looked confusing. And then I realized that the graph editor is actually a lot more powerful and makes your animations look a lot better if you learn to use it. So I would suggest learning how to use the graph editor right away as soon as you can, or at least try and use it more. So for instance, the motion editor, I use it just to set up the scene, because it's a little bit easier to set up basic poses in the motion editor, but once you go to the graph editor, things look a lot more organic and natural. So for instance, with the Scout, if I want to take his arm, and I'll have half a second, him moving it up, just have him swing his arm up. I think he's going to say hi to someone. Also, another thing is watch the shoulders. Source Filmmaker has an issue with shoulders. He hates them. And I really have no idea how to make the shoulders look good in this kind of pose. I think the main thing to do is to bend at the actual shoulder and not the arm too much. Because I guess realistically your arms can't bend that high, so use the shoulder tip. Anyway, so there's that. Put this back down here for the first frame. So in the motion editor, this would normally look like this. Moves his arm up. That's pretty much it. In the graph editor, you can add things like this in. So I say I want to move his arm up, but when you move your arm up like that, you don't just stop at the top. You know, I guess your arm would bounce a little bit, kind of like that. So now when he moves his arm up, it kind of has a bit of a bounce at the end. Looks a little more natural. And then if you add that onto the arm as well, oh, okay, that's weird. There's one of the issues with Source Filmmaker is rotation. It doesn't like it too much. It has issues with rotating. Let's try that again, shall we? So, arm animation. Let's try having it just go straight up. Oh, that's backwards. See, I'm not an expert. So, yeah, if you use more than one of the X, Y, or Z axes, it's going to have some issues with animating the rotation. So I would suggest just using one of these rotation things if you can. Otherwise, it's going to mess up a good amount. So now I have it moved like this. I add in the kind of like a buffer keyframe. And as soon as you add that other one in, it's set to kind of make a nice smooth curve between them, which adds that nice bounce effect. See? Personally, I think that effect looks a lot better and actually a little more cartoony in my mind. Motion editor is good for like robots and stuff that move very jerkily. Graph editor is good for humans and animals. Alright, I'm back. Recording software is iffy because I don't feel like paying for it. Anyway, recap. So, you can change... I would suggest using the graph editor as much as you can. The way I eased in using the graph editor is I used to just use the motion editor, so for Spy and Sniper 2, I started using the graph editor for their hats, just, to get used to it. And then I moved on to using graph editor for everything, and that's pretty much all I use now. Motion editor is really, I don't use it for much, just to set up the main scene. And even then I use the graph editor more now. So I'd say it's a good idea. What else should I talk about? Oh yes, camera techniques. I forgot to talk about the lenses of the camera. So these, I didn't use these much either, but then I read a tutorial on them, and I found that apparently using 50 is the best, which doesn't seem to make a change here, but I think a lot of people use 35, which is a wide field of view. You can see a lot more, it's easier to move around in Source Filmmaker, but 50 adds the best cinematic effects for good medium range shots. I think 85 was for close-ups, and then I think 35 was more for long shots. So I generally just use 50, because I usually have medium range shots. And it makes them not look stretched or distorted, the characters. So, other animation techniques. What else? Oh, okay, that's weird. Oh, everyone always likes my facial expressions. Let's talk about those. So basically, facial expression-wise, one thing is that, see, when you select the face, this point that appears here, that's where his eyes are looking. I didn't quite get that in the Valve tutorials, and I imagine that might be just because I'm me. But, so if you want to, if you have a character off in the distance, I can just drop that on the character in the distance, and he'll look at them. So it's a lot easier to maneuver his eyes. And like Valve told me, which I never really listened to, don't use the eyes up and down thing, because that just messes it up. I'm not sure why they have that lever. Anyway, so looks like I chose the wrong scout. Silly me. Let me get a new one. Yeah, that's another thing. Don't use the default Team Fortress 2 models. You want to use the HWM ones. I don't even know what that stands for, but they have much better facial editing. So a lot of people are asking me how I get those facial expressions. I'm guessing they're probably using the default Scout and other class models. When you use the HWM models, you get a lot more control over the facial expressions. But actually, it is a bit of a trade-off, and I'll show that maybe later. But the main thing is with these guys is you get the phonemes, so you get automatic lip syncing. Looks like you actually get a lot more controls over the hat and whatnot, because I didn't see that before. Let's move the dog tags out of the way. Yeah, I didn't see the hat controls before, so actually this might be even better that way too. I don't think it's any higher quality, graphics-wise, but it certainly is much better facial-wise. So let's get his face now. Grab his face, have him look off in the distance somewhere. That's pretty good. So, yeah, if you see, now I have a lot more options in the face. I can do a lot of stuff. Now, Valve is awesome and supply a bunch of default things. So you can have him be that's happy, apparently. Here's happy small, there's a bunch of good stuff. Scared. But personally, I like to just toy around with these until I get what I want. And the basic things I'll do is I like to have the eyes open almost as much as possible, just because if you notice in animations, movie-wise, characters tend to have larger eyes, so you can get more emotion out of them. In games, you don't really need that because you don't ever see the character's eyes, really. So for animating Source Filmmaker, I like to have the character's eyes open a little bit wider. And that's a little too wide, but maybe that wide, because compared to their squinty little normal wide. So, like that, maybe. You can get a lot more expression out of that. So, you know, surprise, just basically, you know, brows up. You can do a lot of confused surprise, all that sort of stuff. So this is mainly just a lot of toying around with the different sliders and seeing what happens. Most of them are self-explanatory. I'll explain a few of the weirder ones. So you got smile, that's pretty basic. Multi-smile, I'm still not sure what it does. It kind of just either scrunches or stretches the smile, which never looks really that good. I never got the point of it. I suppose it's useful in some situations, but yeah. I guess if the smile looks a little too wide, you can scrunch it a little bit. But yeah, I would never use it to the full other one. Dimple. I think it actually takes out the dimples. He looks less wrinkly when I use dimple. So you can make characters look a little bit younger if you use dimple, sometimes, correctly. Right here doesn't look that good. Zip lips. Doesn't do anything unless you have the lips open. It's a bit weird of an effect. It closes his lips on the outside but leaves the center open. So if I want, like, it was a really weird looking thing there. It's kind of freaky. I don't ever use zip lips. What else? Tongue. I never really have a reason to use the tongue controls, but they're there, and I use them sometimes. It's good to have. It's creepy looking. Yeah. Upper lip too high is not good. You usually want to go the lower lip, being the one that's open. Keep the upper lip not too high. Otherwise it just looks like they're snarling. So tongue V is just up and down for the tongue. Tongue D is... I think that's sticking it out. Yeah, that's how far the tongue is sticking out from the mouth. Now I would wish that Valve would actually add in... Can I? No. A way to remap these slider ranges so I could actually have some crazy stuff like sticking the tongue out like 5 feet, because that'd be pretty funny. But can't do that right now, so that's as far as you can get anything like that. This is left to right with the tongue. This is to curl it up and down, so you get a little more length on there. So, yeah. Funnel for people who can do that. Does that weird bendy thing. Yep, there we go. Narrow. So, a bunch of weird controls for the tongue. Nothing that I really ever use personally. What else for the Scout? Puffing lips kind of makes self-explanatory. If I close his lips again. Puff will just puff his lips out like he's, I don't know, blowing air against the inside of his lips, kind of. Pucker, he's gonna have to kiss. Folding, just, you know, folding his lips so he can get a frustrated look if he folds it under his teeth. Or weird look right now. Other good facial techniques. For lip syncing, a lot of people use the built-in extract phonemes, which is good and great for beginners. Like I have only used that up until my last video, but now I'm pretty sure I'm going to be using a whole bunch of other stuff now, mainly manual lip syncing. So let's find a Scout line. Scout. Oh hey, it's me. We'll take this one. So, I have this, grab that, extract the phonemes. So, really simple, Val put this in. It's good. It basically models what he's saying, but it's not great looking. Get the camera up. So it doesn't really look exactly. If I had the sound muted for that, you couldn't tell what he was saying probably. Like, let's see. Let's mute this. Like, you really can't read his lips, which is not a great thing. Really, to me, what a good lip syncing job would be, you can read their lips. And I still can't do that, but I'm hoping I'm getting close. So what I like to do now is not actually use the phonemes, and so I will take his face and let's go back to default creepiness, and then I like to just manually like look at myself in a mirror and go pretty much syllable by syllable and model that, which takes a lot more time but ends up looking generally a lot better. No, that's up to you guys, I suppose. Personally, I think it looks better. I mean, you guys can look at my latest video, Scout infiltrates ZombieCon, and decide, because that one was completely out of just, me trying to model my own face. I personally think it looked better, but I don't know. It's all my personal opinion. So I went through facial expressions, basic lip syncing, some animation techniques, as I could do an entire tutorial on animation. It would be probably long, and it wouldn't really teach you everything because it's mainly practice. So you just keep on trying, and each video you make, just try to make it better than your last video in some way. You'll just get better. What I did personally, this may not be best for everyone, is I just started off with the Valve tutorial, finished that up, and then each video I made I tried to improve in some way. I started out improving camera, then I started improving my animation style, I tried to improve voice acting, I improved my lip syncing, that's my latest one. Next I'm working on character fighting scenes. So just each video focus on one aspect, and then eventually you'll have everything nailed down pretty much. That's my best suggestion for that. And yeah, I don't have much else to say right now. I'll come up with a better script for my next tutorial. I guess you guys can comment on what you want to actually see in a tutorial. This is just a basic one, very, very basic. I probably should have gone over more, but didn't think it through entirely. But there should be some basis to polish up your videos. You know, depth of field to add that focus effect, the vignette also for focus, the graph editor to add some organic movements to your animations, and then the lip syncing to make your characters look better, and also the HWM models for all those great facial expressions. Yeah, and the lenses. Those are good too. So I will get back to animating other stuff, and I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I'll be putting a bunch of links in the bottom to other tutorials that are much more in-depth and much better, but hopefully this one at least gets you the basics. So I should have a bunch of tutorials in the description for this video.